like criticism is below that, because like, certain things are easier. I mean, like, you know, like, criticism is definitely easier than fiction, I have found. Because at least you're reacting to something that already exists. I mean, it's hard when, but what I found with like, this book, I will admit, was incredibly hard to write. I was sort of cavalier about doing it. I didn't think it would be as hard as it was. Because what I'm going to say something now, and people are going to think I'm just an idiot for overlooking this. The thing I didn't really, I guess, because I thought to myself, in a way it might be easier, because I could just make stuff up now. But if I was writing about this conversation, I could at least like look at the table, remember what it looked like, remember that there were 4 bottles, you described here. But it's really hard to like make an imaginary table. It really takes time. Or like to make floors and like that. And you always got to figure out like how long would it realistically take someone to like walk across the room to have this happen. The technical parts of it were incredibly difficult. So that's why I think it's harder.
To get back to, do you read novels? Do you read poetry? Like this idea.
I don't read much poetry, I guess.
It seems weird to say that you hold this thing that.
The thing is, it's sort of like
it's like saying the greatest sport is one you never watch.
Well, I mean, maybe it's too great for me. Like maybe I mean, because poetry is interesting. If you want a book, like if you want to have a book that will get attention in the present tense, absolutely write nonfiction. Those nonfiction books, like especially if it's like a cultural criticism or a sociology book, they'll have this huge spike. If you write a novel, you have a very chance of people kind of remembering it like over maybe a span of 5 or 10 years or even maybe a lifetime. But if you really want to be remembered, you should do poetry, because like 500 people will read it when you're alive, 200 people will read it in 400 years. You know?
And when you were writing this book, were there certain writers who came to mind as you thought, like, oh, I like them, I would like to write a novel like their books, like, I don't know.
Not really.
No.
Not really.
No, not Nick Hornby, not...
No, because the thing is...
I'm thinking of the other
because for one thing, that would be... I mean, I think if you try to do that, even like, if you're successful at it, it's still, it's not... Like, I don't want it to be... It's in the industry, like in the book writing industry, of course, like when I turn this book in to my publisher, the main thing that they want to do is like have other books they can compare it to. But of course, as a writer, that's the last thing you want. You know, you don't want people to say, even if they say it's a really awesome person who you think is better than you still don't want to be like them, you know.
And what are novels that you've read lately that you really liked?
Like recently?
Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking about, like, you know, you're talking about the novel as this thing that's a great achievement. Like, what are the novels you like? Like, when you think about,
I mean, like it's George Orwell, like 1984, which is a part of this book. Another part of the reason that it's set in 1983. Yeah, this book is set in 1983 for 2 specific reasons. One is that I don't want to give too much of this away, although who's going to fucking remember 6 months from now? But there's an event in February. This is a real event. On February 4th of 1984, there was a cataclysmic blizzard in the Midwest, and it was like 50 degrees in the middle of the day, and the temperature dropped like crazy, and this Alberta clipper came through, and all these people died. And this is like a unifying element in this book, so that's one of the reasons why I picked this time. Another period is, and I made reference to this when I was reading, I mentioned a guy named Gordon Call, and this is a part of this book too. Gordon Call was he was a tax protester from the early 1980s, and he shot a bunch of federal marshals in a dispute. But the third reason was the kid in the high school, okay, he has this very strange relationship with his English teacher, who's also his football coach, because his coach keeps getting high school girls pregnant. But he's kind of an interesting English teacher, and he's making all of the students in the entire school read 1984 simultaneously. So they're sort of having this collective experience of reading the same book, because the teacher's thinking like, well, in January, and some of you will probably remember this very clearly, mentions of that book were very prominent early on, so that's part of it too. So, but like, I don't know, that doesn't answer your question. Like, what books? Like, I mean, it's not like Lonesome Dove, or that's a good book, but that's not like what it's like. I mean, so I don't know how to answer this question.
You're turning yourself into a novelist. What are the novels you kind of like?
Okay, well, see, because I get that, people ask that question about bands. People ask me about bands, I'm not even in a band, so I guess if I'm writing a book, I should have an answer to this, I suppose.
You don't have to. It's okay.
Because the thing is, if you
did you avoid novels while you were writing them? Did you read a lot of novels while you were?
I think I probably read more while I was writing it, although it doesn't help. It makes you feel worse.
Yeah.
I mean, almost. I just am. I'm very wary of